thanks for joining me today. Tell me a little bit about yourself and your background in IoT.
So my name is Luke Darcy and I work at SIGFOX. So SIGFOX is it's an independent network operator for small messages.
Small messages, okay.
Small messages. So we're a bit like, our business model is pretty similar to AT&T, I guess.
Right.
You know, we put up networks and then charge people for connecting to them.
Mm-hmm.
But the type of devices that connect to our network aren't cell phones. They're low bandwidth devices like sensors and smart meters and smoke detectors and other devices like that.
Okay.
I've personally been working for SIGFOX for around a year or so.
Mm-hmm.
Previously, I set up a company called Null, which was operating in a similar kind of area, IoT networking. So I've been working in IoT for probably about 4 or 5 years now.
So now let's get into a little bit. The AT&Ts, the Verizons, the T-Mobiles, maybe the T-Mobiles, they put up their own infrastructure. I'm assuming that you're not putting up your own infrastructure, you're leasing other people's infrastructure. Is that true?
Well, we are actually putting up our own infrastructure. So we...
Like all the tower, I mean, to the same extent, or is it not, or what's the difference? Because obviously you're not going to be able to make an investment like a Verizon.
No, absolutely not. So, you know, particularly as a startup. But I think, you know, what we're doing, we're building a wide area network for the Internet of Things. So similar to a cell phone network, you know, it works indoors, it works outdoors. You can take the device out and walk around with it, because we think there's a significant chunk of the Internet of Things device market that needs that kind of capability. It's not all of it, you know. Some for a lot of applications that only live in the home, then Wi-Fi might work, you know, but there are lots of others that it doesn't. So, you know, a big challenge for us is reducing the investment that's needed to provide that kind of network.
Infrastructure.
And what we've done is basically we've developed a technology that allows us to cover very wide areas with relatively few base stations. So we can cover a city with probably around 100th of the number of base stations that Verizon needs for their LTE network.
So you're actually going up 1 in every 100 base stations. You're obviously leasing space on them. Yeah. You're not building them, but you're saying your cost a lot lower because you only have to do 1 in 100. Yeah. And you're just occupying space as opposed to leasing spectrum or leasing.
That's right. So if you look at a network operator, the fundamental costs that you've got are connected to the number of base stations that you have. You know, you've got to lease the base station site if you don't own it, and hardly anyone owns base station sites anymore. It's the kind of real estate companies do.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Including the towers as well? Yeah,
that's mostly the case, even for the big network operators.
I did not know that. Okay.
So they lease from companies like American Tower and Crown Castle, who are essentially real estate
So you just
companies.
go to the same ones then?
Yeah, it's their business. It's easy to do.
Right.
You have to pay for it, but you know, it's a normal transaction for them. You don't need any special favors.
Right.
And then, so that's one cost for a network operator. Another big cost is buying spectrum from the FCC, and that's a huge cost normally. And then there's also the cost of backhaul from the base stations. You know, you've got to pay for a connection.
Yeah. No. Talk to me about the number 2 from the spectrum. Are you having to lease any spectrum, or is this?
No, you see, so we realised early on that as a startup, well, for 2 reasons. As a startup, it's inconceivable that you could raise enough money to buy $1 billion worth of spectrum, even if it's available. You know, you'd have to write a check that big. So, and then the IoT, you know, if it probably can't support that level of investment anyway, at least not at this stage.
Right.
Because, you know, if you were to set up, I think the IoT is so different in terms of its business model from conventional cell phones, which are served well by LTE networks, that having a strategy that's basically the same as an LTE network, it's never going to work.
You can't compete.
You'd just be doing something that's an inferior version to whatever's out there. So you need like a radical rupture with the past and how things have been done before. And so we decided that we were going to use unlicensed spectrum.
Unlicensed.
And that's free.
So you're sharing it then?
But you have to share.
Yeah.
So, you know, and that creates, you know, obviously it's good that it's free. It's good that it's available everywhere. It's complicated and difficult because, you know, you have to share with other people and you get interference. And with licensed spectrum, you shouldn't get interference.
Right.
So you've got to build a system that's robust to interference.
Got it. Now, number 3, what was number 3 cost again?
Number 3 is the cost of backhaul. Yes. So you know you've got to connect up all of those base stations and then route the data. And so we've, if you look at all three, we've found a way of greatly reducing all of them. So we have a 100th of the number of base stations. So straight away, that's probably your biggest OPEX.
Oh, really? Okay.
Number two, then we're using free spectrum, so $0. And then on number three, well, with IoT, the bandwidths that are involved for most applications are very low.
It's relatively low, true.
So if you work it out, then a big application for IoT at the moment is smart metering.
Right.
And 600,000 smart meters is one person watching a Netflix film.
Is that right? That's a very cool statistic. I like that.
So the actual we're not paying a lot for backhaul either.
Right. Because the backhaul doesn't care how many people are connected to it. That's your business.
That's if you manage it right. It's just data. It's just bits going over the backhaul. So that's what we've done. So we've basically designed a system that's going to be as cheap as possible to roll out, and that means that we can offer very low network prices, while still ultimately making a profit.
Right.
And I think that's it's obviously essential because I think IoT devices are going to need much lower networking fees if they're going to work and to make the ROIs work for more applications.
Yeah. So the challenge here will be that interference. So I guess your tech is going to be in how you mitigate that interference. Is that fair?
That's fair. So there are two unusual aspects to our technology. I don't want to get too much into the details of the technology, but one thing we've done is we've decided from day one to concentrate on slow networks. So
makes sense.
If you decide that you're never going to support broadband, you can do a
video, for example,
or audio, or actually,
even audio. Okay.
Our network is extremely slow. It's probably about as slow as you can make a network.
How many baud is it?
It's so it allows devices to send 12-byte messages, and you can send probably up to about 1,000 12-byte messages per day.
So per day?
Yeah.
That is really slow.
It's really slow.
But it probably is good enough.
You've got to do something that's distinctive. Basically, if you try and go faster, what happens is when you do all these sums, it just means that you have to put more base stations in.
Yeah, right.
And once you start increasing the number of base stations,
costs go up.
Costs go up, and you end up looking like your costs are the same as a cell phone network.
What's the point? Yeah.
What's the point? You might as well just use a cell phone network.
All right, well, this is good. This takes me to my next question and your customers. So you've got a very specific customer profile, I would assume, given your technology.
That's right, and I think you've got to focus on things that are good. I think the IoT will split into three, in my opinion.
Okay.
And we're not addressing all of it. I don't think anyone can. So I think you've got probably about 10% of connections that require wide area connectivity and very fast data rate. Even in IoT, and a good example of that's connected car. If you're
really, that's a lot of data.
It's a lot of data. Yeah, people want to download new sat-nav maps.
So, and they might eventually want to watch those Netflix movies anyway.
Yeah, maybe if you get kind of an automatic driver, maybe that'll be allowed. So. And that's definitely going to get done using cellular. That LTE is a good match for that.
It's a no-brainer.
And then you've got another chunk of that leaves 90% of the available market in terms of connections. And another chunk of it is very home orientated.
Okay.
So basically, if you're connecting a thermostat, for example.
You're at home, though.
You're in an environment where you're at home, and you've got a Wi-Fi network. Yeah. And most often, those sort of devices, it's not critical that the data gets through. You can see.
It doesn't matter. You're on Wi-Fi.
You're on Wi-Fi, so you can do it. And I think there's been a lot of interest around those applications, and that's probably maybe half of the remainder of the IoT.
45. So you're saying there's 45% left that are in the industrial and commercial
There
areas?
are 45% left that are either enterprise, or they are applications that are outdoors. Mm-hmm. So they're not in the home, so can't be done by Wi-Fi. Or they're applications that need to be on a professionally managed network.
Right.
I think that's, and can't afford the high cost of a cellular network because they're not a BMW car or whatever.
Right.
So, so I'd say a good example of that would be a connected smoke detector. Uh-huh. So that's in the home. So it kind of goes against what I was saying.
Well, let's put it into a business instead.
Yeah.
Right.
So
connected smoke detector in a business.
Yeah, connected smoke detector in a business.
And let's say that it's in a shop floor, or let's say you don't have that Wi-Fi available, or is that where you're going?
Well, they may even have Wi-Fi available because it's you're indoors. But often the business case we've seen for connected smoke detectors is a rather unusual one that's not immediately obvious. But we have hundreds of thousands of these things installed in Europe, and our customer there is an insurance company.
Okay.
And the way it works is that they give their customers a connected smoke detector. And as long as that connected smoke detector is sending back messages once per day saying that it's operating correctly, the customer gets a discount on their home insurance. And it's a great deal because their actuaries have worked out that the risk of a high payout fire, it goes up exponentially if there's no smoke detector.
Kind of makes sense, right?
So they're greatly reducing their risk, and they pass on some of that discount to the end customer, which helps them in the marketplace.
Okay.
So they currently charge for the smoke detectors, but they're thinking about moving to a model where they subsidize them, or maybe even give them away free.
Smoke detector as a service. Or as an insurance service.
Yeah, so that's and the reason why you could say, well, let's do it on a Wi-Fi network or using cellular. So just to make the specific case for the kind of long-range, low-power network that we're talking about, that third segment. And the reason why it works is because if you're in that sort of situation, then there are basically two advantages. So if it's a home use case, you can assume that most people will have Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
But there's a real issue with pairing a smoke detector with a Wi-Fi network. It's not impossible to do it, and lots of people have come up with creative ways of doing it. But non-techie people, mass market customers, seem to have a problem with actually getting their smoke detectors connected to a Wi-Fi network.
Or any other connected device, then. I mean, it's not limited to smoke detectors.
And it's possible to solve it, but it requires a lot of customer support.
Sure.
So with a wide area network, you don't have that pairing process. It's just like a cell phone. So you just put it in and turn it on.
It's an ease of use advantage.
Ease of use, yeah. And then the other aspect of it is that they don't want the signals to be dependent on the user's Wi-Fi maintenance regime.
And even power, maybe?
And even power. So there are applications like that. With Wi-Fi, then everyone's their own system admin. And some people even disconnect their Wi-Fi access points overnight to save power. And put them back in and change the password the whole time. Move it from room to room.
Okay.
And for a lot of applications, that's difficult.
I would think so, for sure. So for me, what I hear, it's interesting because you're the backhaul.
Yeah.
Right. But you're kind of pairing to most of the edge networks. And if you look at most of the wireless edge networks in IoT today, I mean, they're generally an overlay network, and they're called lossy, low bandwidth lossy networks. And you kind of, in a sense, are matching the bandwidth, the backhaul characteristics to that type of network anyway. So we know that it's not going to be a super high fidelity network. We know it's not going to be a high bandwidth network. It's because just the nature of the lossy low power networks. So is that a fair assessment?
You can be reliable, I think, with the technology. It's actually good. It can reliably deliver data.
I meant on the edge network. On the edge. I mean, there's a lot of algorithms at the edge network, not on the backhaul. But I'm talking about at the edge network. Yeah. Where the two radios might just not see each other, or they might be, a sensor might be oriented in the wrong way. So there's a lot of work that happens there, where you're doing compensation with algorithms or other things, even sometimes mechanical actuation, where you're trying to get that clear signal. But at the end of the day, I guess what I'm saying is the output from that network is not going to be, a high bandwidth home or network anyway. So it seems to match. In your case.
I mean, I think there are always exceptions, and I think you've got connected video and all that kind of stuff. But I think our hypothesis is there's a big chunk of IoT that's in applications that need very, very low bandwidth. And if we're right about that, I think we've got a system that's really, really very, very suitable for it. If we're wrong about it, then we're probably not going to be so successful. But I think a lot of the existing machine-to-machine use cases that have been picked up are the ones that have huge R out of ROI.
Yes.
And so it doesn't really matter what the investment is. Connected car is a good example. There are others that you could point to. But the way we see the market is that there are thousands of other perfectly good applications that could return, that could have very good benefits, but are blocked at the moment because existing technologies, particularly cellular, are too expensive or too power hungry to make it work.
Right, power hungry as well. So that's a good point. Now, but I suppose in your case, what's the power requirements? Is it a lot less because a lot less data is being sent along?
Yeah, it's a lot less for two reasons. One is that we're not sending so much data, and that helps. And another is that we've set the system up specifically to allow radios to go to sleep when they're not being used.
Okay.
So when our radio isn't transmitting, if a radio has a message to transmit, it wakes up and transmits it, and then goes back to sleep. It sends one message. So as a comparison, then I saw a statistic once about using GPRS for smart metering. Now, to do a smart meter using SIGFOX sends one packet per meter read.
Right.
A GPRS network sends more than 2,000.
Okay.
And you pay for that in battery life.
But how many packets do you need, though?
One.
You only need one packet?
Yeah, you need one packet.
That's it?
It's sending one number. So you're sending. It's just the reading on your.
So as long as it's not too big of a number, you're okay.
You're okay. Yeah. So 12 bytes is the limit we
12 bytes. Okay.
You can get quite a lot in 12 bytes.
You can. I don't know if you heard recently that Psy for YouTube, they blew YouTube Gangnam style because they were only using a 32-bit integer. And he had over X number of billion views.
Oh God!
It ran over the 32. Yeah. So you're a little bit less. I think you're safe there. All right. So your target customer, the market. I think we're looking at lower bandwidth.
Yeah.
You're reducing the I of the ROI, so the R can be a little bit less. So the barrier of entry is a little bit lower.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. Now your business model. How are you making money?
So we're 100% a network operator.
Okay, so same business model.
Yeah, we only make money when people go on the network, and we charge a small amount, per year per device.
Oh, so you're charging per year per device per bandwidth, or where's the bandwidth come in play, or doesn't it?
It does a little. So there are two dimensions to the pricing. The price that we quote people.
Okay.
One is the number of connections they buy. Big customers get a better deal than people just buying a few connections, obviously.
Yep. Okay.
And the other is the number of messages they want to send. So we've got deals. The connected smoke detector sends one message per day, and that's at the bottom end of what we can do.
Okay.
At the top end, I've got a customer doing tracking for pets, and when you're tracking for pets, you actually want to send quite a few messages. It turns out, and they're sending close to 1,000 messages per day, that kind of level, and that's
so
sort of the top end of what we can do.
Know where it is, yeah.
And the actual pricing varies from about $1 per month down to well under $1 per year, depending on the situation.
Oh, very interesting. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the time. And where can people find out more information?
So we've got a website. It's sigfox.com.
Perfect. We'll see you there.